Am I on? I think I'm on. Hey guys, so it's been a long time since I've done a United stream, but seeing as I've got a lot of time on my hands and I've set up a great studio for the dental podcast, I thought I'd dive back in and do some United streaming as well. I didn't do one yesterday because I had a podcast on the other channel, but here we go, and we'll see how long I keep this up for. Last time I had managed about 8-9 videos, and then I ended up back in work, so I didn't kind of take it much further. But United yesterday were pretty terrible. First game of the new season, only one game in pre-season. Most of the squad had 4 days of full-time training, and a couple of the guys had 2 weeks beforehand. It was hit by the Nations League, so that didn't help things either. And we all saw the result. Crystal Palace were way better than us, and we ended up with 3-1 loss, which is absolutely not what we needed. But to be honest, from my point of view, was not unexpected. If we'd had a full preseason, I think we're much better team than them. But as it was, we missed a right winger, we missed a right back. We were playing Scott McTominay instead of Menge. So for me, there were too many changes to a working formula with not enough backup options or rotational options that were up to scratch. I think one of the biggest things we saw yesterday as well was the inability of Victor Lindelof to actually defend in any meaningful manner. I think we'd be much better off with pretty much any of the other of the 6 centre halves United now have in the roster, or in the squad. I think the only one who will be worse is possibly Phil Jones, but due to his own lapse of concentration, as opposed to him being as poor as Victor Lindelof as a defender. But that's my kind of thoughts on the matter. So what do you think to that? Let's have a look. Other than that, we were really poor in the build-up play. We were getting press in midfield. Pogba, as brilliant as he is, isn't a press resistant player. He's very much a physical presence, and he tends to try and use his body to get in the way of the opposition and beat them for power, and with a little trickery as well, as opposed to quickly moving the ball away. So I think that's something that really he isn't his strong suit. So you might see similar issues until he's back properly match fit. Of course, a couple of weeks ago he was diagnosed with coronavirus, and that's absolutely not helping matters in any way whatsoever. So I think it'll be interesting to see, or worrying to see, what happens in the meantime. It may be that Donny van de Beek, Fred and McTominay maybe come in, and we maybe work with this more of a strong defensive platform or pivot, and have people like Bruno Fernandes, Paul Pogba further forwards. I wouldn't be averse to seeing actually Bruno Fernandes playing right wing until we get a real option such as Jadon Sancho. I think that's something that's maybe out of left field a little bit, but if we look at the strengths of our team, it's certainly not on the right wing. We've done similar things to Juan Mata, to Jesse Lingard, now Dan James, who's much better on the left hand side. So I think it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to try something like that, but it's definitely not a long-term option. It would be good in that we'd push up one of our most attacking and productive players into a higher up position, maybe even just give him a free role, but in that sort of right forward area. If we look at any sort of pass map or possession map or hotspot of where the players were on the pitch, Dan James was very isolated on that side. A lot of the issues that he has is if there's no space to run into, he is not the guy who's going to get into any sort of intricate build-up play. He's purely a speed merchant, going to beat the guy for pace when there's a high line, and I don't think we're going to see that very often until we start really dominating games and teams have to come out and play against us. So I think that's going to be an issue that United are going to have quite a lot until we're up to that strong we're in a much stronger position, really. Other than that, I think we definitely have to look at the recruitment side of things. Unfortunately, Ed Woodward and the rest of the guys on the board have completely let Ollie down. We went into last season knowing we were 5 or 6 players short. We're still 4 or 5 players short this season, and I don't see things improving. I think the guys who are in the board are much more interested in the money that they can take out, as opposed to making United a great team. And you can see the difference between United, Spurs, who've just brought in 2 or 3 players in this past week alone, Liverpool, Chelsea and Arsenal. You can see they've all brought in loads and loads of players. Whether or not they're going to be good or not is another issue, but they're trying things and they're getting things done in the transfer market, whereas United are just faffing around, being slightly interested and then losing out. The other thing I was really wanted to, I think we'll go back over Lindelof, really. Victor Lindelof. I think he is not cut out for Premier League football. I'm very surprised he's even good enough for Swedish football, which is really worrying to how poor their defenders must be, because I've not seen a worse player since maybe... He's on a Bebe level for me, because he's not strong, he doesn't pass well, doesn't tackle well, doesn't head the ball well, and he's not quick either. So I really don't see what he brings to the game. There was a point where you did see a little bit of good distribution from him when he was really on form, but that has been few and far times between. I think you'd be much better off even bringing back Chris Smalling, which is crazy to say because he's so poorly cut out for the system that Ollie wants to play. And I don't know how we're going to improve with someone like that in the back line. I think people who are having a bit of a fit about Luke Shaw, I think, yes, you can improve on him, but he's not the weakest link in that back four. I think whenever you have someone as poor as Victor Lindelof in a back four, everyone else is on edge because you're just thinking, what's he going to do next? You're not able to push forward because your midfielders are thinking, well, he's going to get beaten 1-for-1. He's not strong enough to hold off XYZ, whoever it was. I mean, Wilf Zaha, he's not a strong player. He hits the floor more than anyone else on the planet, and he's still bullying Lindelof. So I think that's a really worrying trend and worrying sign. And it's not like he's improved in the 3 or 4 years he's been here. He was bullied in his first game against Huddersfield, and he's been bullied ever since. I've not seen him once win a duel with the centre forwards during a game. As in the overall battle, you can always think, well, it's a bit 50-50, it's on edge, it could go either way. You don't feel confident and convinced by him. And I think that just spreads throughout the rest of the back four. I think if you look like someone who is maybe in the mould of a Upamecano, of course, we're not going to get him now because it's far too late in the window if United have missed the boat on that one. But he would be the perfect kind of player. I think if we look from within, if Tuanzebe can stay fit, he is perfect. He is a Rolls-Royce kind of defender. He's lightning quick, reads the game well, so he's not often caught out of position, unlike a lot of the quick defenders who are out there who mask positional errors with their positioning. I think that's going to be really interesting to see if he can stay fit. If not, I would even drop down to someone like Menge, who is... who's playing like a man beyond his years. Every time I've seen him, I've been impressed, although I've not seen lots and lots of him. I think he would be an interesting option. I would love to see him in the midweek game against Luton Town. I think we're playing in the Carabao Cup. I think if he stands out, I would play him again. Eric Bailly, similar. If he plays and stands out well, I would play him alongside Maguire. There's even an argument in my head to switch to a back three, play someone like Luke Shaw at the left centre back, have someone like Dan James on the left midfield role or the left wing back role because he's got pace to burn and he can get up and down the pitch, and that's kind of where he plays in a way for Wales. Down the left hand side, he can definitely make an overlapping run for Marcus Rashford, so that could open things up for him. And on the right-hand side, you could then potentially play Victor Lindelof because you have got more backup and more strength and depth in the defensive line. But I would be much more favour of him just being dropped altogether. So that's kind of my thoughts on him. And obviously Wan-Bissaka is the number one right back, so we can kind of, I'm happy to keep him in there. So I think Victor Lindelof is going to be the big issue for United this year. I really hope we do manage to get rid of him sooner rather than later, but it's not easily said. It's not easily done, because we've got Phil Jones, who we kind of want to ship off, Marcus Rojo, who we kind of want to ship off, Chris Smalling, who looks like he's probably on his way to Roma. If we drop off Victor Lindelof as well, we're probably going to be down to the bare bones, and that is the real issue. So all these sort of issues that we're looking at are rooted in poor recruitment. So you really have to hold Ed Woodward to account. Problem is, you're never going to get rid of him, because he is the banker who structured the deal that ended up with the leverage buyout. So we're going to be stuck with him for a long while until the Glazers go, and we're not going to get rid of them unless someone's got 5 billion lying around. So it's going to be a bit of a struggle, a bit of a tough ask. But back to the Palace game, I think it's not too much of a worry in terms of, I don't think that kind of a performance will continue to be the norm, because the players will get fitter, and I think fitness was the huge issue there. You don't normally see players like Paul Pogba, as poor as they are, when they're match fit. I think it was really obvious there were a few guys out there who were clearly not up to speed sharpness wise. Looking at Rashford, just not at the races, looked like he was injured. Same could be said for Fosu Mensah, although he did well in the second half. He was actually creating not too badly, took on a couple of nice crosses. So I think there's potential there as a good backup option. But yeah, I think that there is not a huge amount of doom and gloom, although it's a very, very frustrating result. I think we do need to look at the situation in its entirety, in a context of a poor pre-season or no pre-season due to the Europa League run, and then the Nations League, which was completely unnecessary to have Nations League during coronavirus times, especially if you're wanting to have the Euro 2020 and 2021 summer. I think it should just been binned off, or even done in a similar way to the Champions League and Europa League was done, just all in one go. All 4, 5, 6 games, whatever they're going to be, in one go, smash out the way. You can have all the teams in a much closer location, so they're not traveling far and wide, and then it would be finished off. You don't have to have this, international break back and forth, especially not before the season started. And United were in the worst position of all because of the Europa League run. That point where other teams have already had 4 weeks off and were going into their pre-season, United was still playing in the Europa League. At that point, they then have to give the players a couple of weeks off because they've been going for 12 months for pretty hard training, even during the lockdown, because it could have been any minute the Premier League said, well, you've got to come back and you've got to get going in 2 weeks, which obviously happened. But you couldn't just let them, go off on holiday or whatever it might be at that point, because there would have been issues with flights coming back and all sorts of things. So they were really stuck having to do maintenance work that whole way through, which obviously we came back from that period after the coronavirus outbreak and after lockdown, and absolutely smashed it up until the point that the legs started to fall off the players in the last couple of games. So that's kind of been where the whole thing has started from. And I think we do need to have that slight little bit of positivity there, that actually things can turn around and can get much better. But it's going to be very difficult because everyone else has had about 6 weeks of a head start on us in terms of fitness. And when you're playing football or any sport at such a high level, I think that is a huge advantage, because it's only the 1% when you get to this sort of level, and it's only the consistency between players. All these players, like you saw with Will Zaha, score a really nice goal against United. He doesn't do it consistently, but he's capable of it. All of these players in the top flight are capable of really, really good performances, but it's consistency that lets them down. The fitter you are, the easier it is to keep up that consistency, and the easier it is to keep up that consistency is going to be leading to better and better results. So obviously, if you have that kind of a disadvantage where other teams have been training with a view to playing competitive football in 6 weeks, and you've been on holiday and have had 4 days due to the late end to the last season, then it's going to be much more difficult for that for that team who has that issue. I think Man City is going to be very interesting to see what they do. Although their squad is so deep, they may have been able to allow more of a split set strategy, so I think they'll probably get away with it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they have a slightly sluggish start as well. I don't really know the ins and outs of their pre-season, but it will be interesting to see how they cope as well. And it's difficult to actually compare between leagues as well, because obviously in Germany you saw Bayern absolutely smash, was it Schalke 8-0 or something? It just shows to the absolute ridiculously poor quality and strength and depth in other leagues. Although the Premier League is not much better, I think there's a huge gulf in quality between the top 4, top 6 and the rest of the league. I think there's probably about 12 teams who are barely championship quality or a similar quality to the top 10 in the championship. So I think it's hard to compare that across different leagues as well. I am slightly worried about where we're going to end up if we don't have reinforcements. Honestly, I think we could really see the wheels fall off, and it would be really disappointing after the end to last season, 2 semi-finals and the 3rd place finish, which was the best we could have hoped for under the circumstances. So I'm very worried about injuries. If we pick up injuries and haven't strengthened, I can see us having a drop back to form that saw us playing Andres Pereira, Lingard and all the others as starters as opposed to rotational options, and that could be really worrying for United, because Everton look strong. Spurs have just picked up Gareth Bale, and I think he is probably going to be one of the best players in the league, if not the best player in the league. Right off the bat, I don't think we've had a player of his quality in the league for a long time. And if players like Mo Salah are able to score 40 goals in a season, and I don't really rate him, I think Gareth Bale is going to cause some real damage. I think the quality of defending in the Premier League is atrocious, and I think we'll see more and more of that in the coming weeks. So that's kind of my little prediction. Let's see whether it's correct or not. I hope things get a bit for United, but we'll see. Yeah. Well, hopefully I'm going to be doing a few more of these videos. I'm not going to go obviously I'm not going to be going to the matches, so I won't be able to do anything where I'm walking out of the game and stuff like that until we're allowed back in. But until that point, we'll see whether I can give some more of my thoughts, see how things progress for Ollie. Hopefully things look up in the transfer market and on the pitch. And hopefully you enjoyed this one. And if we have a better result on Tuesday nights, hopefully I will be a little bit happier. But thanks for joining me. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share to your social media platforms.